Welcome to Four Women and a Funeral podcast. I'm Lisa Bowie, funeral director, founder of Funeral Women Lead, and author. This podcast is founded by the Funeral Women Lead Foundation, a charitable organization that helps unleash greatness in women, develops them as leaders in the future of the funeral and death care profession by providing a women's leadership academy, an annual wellness summit, programs such as mentoring, coaching, and educational resources, along with various online communities. For more information, please visit our website at funeralwomenlead.org. Our host today, of course, again, from the great state of Minnesota, Elisa Carr, funeral director, CEO, owner of Kelco Funeral Supply from Big Lake, Minnesota. I'm getting that soda down. Mm-hmm. And Melissa Posey-Luz, funeral director, senior. Oh yeah.
You learned a new one.
For you or me.
Oofta.
There you go.
Oofta. Oh, oofta. We got to say oofta now if we're up in Minnesota. Yeah, that's cool. Melissa Posey-Luz from the Great South, funeral director, senior vice president of communications for Security National Funeral Homes and Cemeteries. Both of them are founding members of Funeral Women Lead. And of course, the one and only Ellen McBrayer, funeral director, CEO, owner of Jones Wynn Funeral Homes and Crematory in Villa Rica, Georgia, and our 2026 NFDA secretary, soon to be elected in another month, I think. August, right? It's a big election.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And you're running for and will be elected treasurer. Yeah.
Yes.
And then after that, what happens after treasurer?
President-elect.
President-elect. And then president.
We got to use that Minnesota word. What'd you say? Oofda.
Oofda. That could be our new thing. That's really. We always learn a new word here at Four Women and a Funeral podcast, and it's good to have that. But we have a wonderful guest with us today. She's brand new to Funeral Women Lead, just within the last few months. Her name is Erin Wilson, CFSP and MS, who is the Senior Vice President of Education and Programming Strategy for Funeral Women Lead. And the reason we wanted to have Ellen on today and here in July is because we have some exciting things happening, and we have a brand new Women's Leadership Academy kicking off this September, as well as our annual Leadership and Wellness Summit. So we'll chat a little bit more about that. But let's get to know Erin, because she has a very interesting history in the profession, a path that not all women take. And she is the former president of the Dallas Institute for Funeral Service in Dallas, Texas, from 24 to 26. And Ellen, I mean, you did so many different things. You were a senior academic dean, I think. You were with Charles Smith & Sons as a manager back in the 2019 during the pandemic as a funeral director and embalmer. I think you were with that firm from 18 to 23. You went to Wiley Preparatory Academy, and you were a high school teacher there for many, many years. And you've done just so many different things. And you're in the Aggie Fish Club at Texas A&M University. Something a lot of people probably don't know about that we may have to ask more. And you've done some just wonderful things speaking around the country. We're excited to have you on with us. What else do we need to know about Erin Wilson today?
A whole lot you could know about Erin Wilson. I'm going to say that when I first entered funeral service, I didn't enter funeral service because I had like this lifelong plan to work in the profession. What really drew me in was the meaning behind the work and the impact that this compassionate leadership could have during someone's hardest moments in a family's life. I was in education for a long time. I was a career changer. Long story short, I started a master's in counseling and realized that was not really where I wanted to land. I realized I would be sitting in an office every single day, doing the same thing in and out, and that really wasn't what I was looking for. Kind of took a little break and did some soul searching, got with some mentors and whatnot, and decided that mortuary college would allow me to use those skills that I had to reach people and still guide and be on in that part of the counseling world, right? And so I went to mortuary college right after I started working in a funeral home, and I was sure I was not going back to education for anything. And haha, longer story shorter, here I am. I went to teach for Dallas Institute right after graduating, and I never left until this year. And now I'm here with this great opportunity to further women's education. So I'm really, really excited about where I'm at right now.
So that's cool. And we love what you're doing right now. But I want to know what took you out of education and said, I want to be a funeral director. I just think that sounds like the coolest job ever.
I didn't say that sounds like the coolest job ever. Like
I
I
didn't
said,
either,
I
but
thought it was kind of the red tape, and I thought, oh, I'll go to counseling and I can maybe still be in education and counseling. And I just realized like that just was not the right spot for me. So being able to actually help people through just such a traumatic time in their lives is what really drew me to the profession.
and I think we're seeing that for a lot of women who have going into mortuary school today. I'm hearing that that's one of the top reasons they go in. Okay, before we move on into what's going on in the mortuary schools, I just have to ask what this Aggie Fish Club is.
So my son just finished his master's at Texas A&M. So he had finished his bachelor's there prior to that. And he was in leadership in the Aggie Fish Club. And so they asked me to come and speak each year while he was in that club. And so that was an awesome group of students that I got to go down there and connect with and speak to. And if you know anything about A&M, you know that is one of the most hospitable, amazing places to be. So I was very privileged to be able to speak to that group multiple times.
So do they fish?
Is it
Or what
fishing
is
group?
No, there's no
No.
fish like freshmen, right? And so as a freshman,
Oh,
you go
Oh,
into the organization, and then if you stay in the organization as a sophomore, junior, or senior, then you're in the leadership part of the organization.
got
So
it.
no,
Okay,
that's
all right.
that's
We were
so
all
funny
thinking
you
you're
said
going
that.
fishing.
No, that's so funny you said that, because that's like one of the first things I was like, why are you joining some organization where you're going to go fishing? You don't even fish very much. So yeah.
that's funny. Well, Elisa ice fishes.
Yep. I was going to say he could come up here if he needs some lakes to ship fish in. We got over 10,000 of them.
Yeah, my husband's actually been up there to go ice fishing with a friend. So
Yeah, everybody has to do it at least once. That's what I tell people. It sounds like, I had one funeral director from Texas, actually. He's like, so you drive on the water? And I said, well, I mean, in the summertime, it's water, but in the wintertime, it's 2 feet thick, 3 feet thick sometimes. So yeah, we drive on the water. We walk on water.
that's great.
But yeah, we get our little ice castle.
Wonderful. Yeah, I just went up there a couple months ago for a state convention, and there are a lot of fish up in her parts of the country, but it was not frozen over. So let's ask you some more questions about what are the biggest challenges students and new graduates, what are they facing when they enter the profession?
So I just wrapped up a whole series of focus groups with educators and with students to help us develop programs for them. And so there's quite a few, but a lot of what they are facing stems around lack of confidence and lack of support. So they all talked about lack of mentorship. They all talked about burnout. They don't have that confidence, and they haven't found their voice yet. And that's really important to me, because once I found my voice, I realized that there was so much more I could do. And so I really want to help these women to find their voice. They're talking already about emotional exhaustion, how to go home and how not to take work home with you, which we all know is extremely hard, right? They feel isolated, they feel disconnected. And then, long-term career growth within the funeral service profession, it depends on where you land, right? As to what your long-term career growth is. And so that's another thing that I want to help these women and these students to see, is that there are so many opportunities within the funeral service and death care profession that you don't just have to be stagnant where they are forever. So
Oh, well.
that, and then like balancing like their personal identity with professional expectations, that one's big with this new generation that's coming in.
So one thing that really impressed me on your resume was that you really increased student retention improvement when you were at Dallas. And so kind of with that in mind, what are some things that you're seeing that maybe we could do to help increase retention in the funeral service profession and in death care? Because we're seeing, people come in, but they're coming in good numbers, but then they're leaving, right? And so, yeah, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we definitely need to have a mentorship pipeline for these women. They're craving to have someone to talk to. And that was a huge concern with all of them. They don't even necessarily need that person to be at their funeral home in their state, right? They just want to be able to have even if it's a telephone conversation with someone to help them through. So that's huge. And so that's part of what we're trying to create with Funeral Women Lead, is that we need mentors for these women.
I want to validate that really quick because I just got the sweetest note in the mail. There was a gal that we met when we were, Lisa and Ellen, we were in Idaho. She was in school and working at the time. She's a mom of, I can't remember how many kids. Anyway, it's a tough balance, right? But she finally graduated, and I'm so proud of her. And she wrote me the nicest note. And she said in that note, I certainly hope that I can be mentored by you through Funeral Women Lead or something like that. And I just appreciated that. Yeah. And I thought, that's so, how many more are there out there? So Erin, what you're saying is totally valid. And I've even saw it at Professional Women's Conference. So yeah, so we're excited that we're going to have that. Great.
I did too. I got the same thing from her. A card with her in her cap and gown. Is that the one?
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that cool? And
Yes.
so the connections that we make, and both Ellen and Melissa and I were all up in Idaho a little over a year ago, and just met some amazing women. And at NFTA's PWC, some of these young women that are new owners came up and said, here I am, and I'm really feeling lost, and I need to find my place and how to be an owner. And I asked one of them, I said, well, what would you think if we got a bunch of young, new women owners, not necessarily young, by the way, because there are women owners of all ages, but together where they could network. And we brought them together in a place where they could learn together. We could bring in guest speakers and things like that. How cool would that be? And obviously the women on this podcast have experience in that area, as well as others that we could tap into. I think it's great. Erin, can you tell us a little bit more about this new leadership academy that Funeral Women Lead is starting, and why it's going to be different than anything else out there? I'm just curious.
So I'm very excited about what we're doing with the Leadership Academy. I was at OGR last week, and I spoke with a couple of graduates, and then a couple of students and a couple of recent grads, and had dinner with a couple of them. And so we talked about what would they like to see. And they were talking about, like, they don't know how to read a budget. They don't know how to read a P&L. They don't know how to lead others. And so that is where in the Women's Leadership Academy, we're going to be talking about obviously how to regulate yourself in stressful situations, but we're going to talk about how to run a business, how not only to lead yourself, but to lead others and to lead them well. Do you want to be a manager? There's a track for that. Do you want to be an owner? There's a track for that. And there's a lot of crossover, but not all managers want to be owners, et cetera, right? So we've created 2 separate tracks
Not
for
all
that.
owners should be good managers either. They need to get out of
Well, that
everybody's
too.
way.
That too.
Hey, Ellen, can you relate to that at all? Can you relate? Like,
I was
not all owners should be the managers in charge.
That's right. That's right. And the wise ones, though, I heard one of, I'm on a board with this gentleman. He's a funeral director, and he goes, I started making more money when I got out of the way. Started letting some of my funeral directors shine instead of trying to do everything. And so, I think, wisdom comes with many years of trial and error in funeral service. So it's exciting to hear that educational pieces are now going to back up to support men and women in funeral service. And before we move past too far, talk about, finding your voice, and when you were talking about school, and then to hear Lisa and Melissa talk about the note, I got one as well. What about the power of a handwritten note, that's being mailed? That young lady may not have found her voice yet, but she sure knows how to connect and reach out, which is half the battle. So.
Correct. And speaking of a handwritten note, we just moved and I was unpacking everything and I found the handwritten note that I received from the first family that I waited on. And so it's here in my drawer and I've kept it all this time. And so, like you said, the power of a handwritten note, the power of that connection. And so it's huge.
Wonderful. And I want to go back to what you talked about earlier. And when Melissa and Lisa were talking about a handwritten note, I got one too after speaking from a young lady. And I know, Erin, you said that a lot of these ladies in school might not have their voice yet or confidence built up. But for us to be sitting here and talking about a handwritten note by somebody that just graduated, she might not have her voice, she might, but reaching out and connecting and networking, I heard somebody say, it's not the grades you make, but the hands you shake. Well, I think it's both. I think it's a little bit of both, because I feel like if you have enough about you to reach out, and the power of a handwritten note, because an email might have gotten lost. So I think that's such a big deal.
I agree. That's another thing that we had talked about, was they feel like they maybe don't have the communication skills necessary, one, to be professional, but two, there's a generational gap too between some of the women that are coming into our profession and then some of us that have been in the profession for so long. And so learning, and this is going to take work on both sides, right? Learning how to speak to the different generations where we can all kind of meet in the middle, right? And communicate. And so that's a huge part of it as well.
Well, so, we've talked internally a lot about communities. We've heard lots of requests for communities, places to gather, to get those voices out. What are we developing at Funeral Women Lead? Can you speak to that? Because I know I'd love to know, and I'd love to go ahead and get it out there, something more definitive.
Right. So right now we are working on building out our leadership and wellness community. This is going to be for Funeral Women Lead. We're still working out all the details, but starting out quarterly, we're going to have live sessions with women in the profession talking about the different struggles. We're going to have a student community where those students can not just communicate and not just get connected with women who are already in the profession, but a community of students across the nation. We've got 33 of the 58 colleges so far that have said they want to have their students involved in this, and that is huge. And one thing that these students have said is they don't just want to talk to their students on their campus. They want to hear from people across other states to see what it's like, not only at that school, but also what it's like working in a different community. And so we're going to have that space available as well. This ideally is all going to roll out here in the month of June. So we're
in the month of July. So is it open yet?
Oh,
We're
we are
recording
in the
in
month of
July.
We are in July.
Happy
So
anniversary to 250th anniversary to the United States of America. So sometime this summer, we'll have our first community open up and running. So go check on our website, sign up for our newsletter. If you're not, please do that, and you'll learn more about the first community we're starting. I think it's cool that these mortuary schools want to have chapters of Funeral Women Lead.
Mhm.
Maybe there'll be some get together of these women coming together in an organized fashion, but also to speak to women from all over the country, maybe even the world. I mean, there was a woman at PwC from Italy. We have our Canadian sisters up north that have great mortuary schools as well. They want to network. I think the struggles are in some ways real and the same, and some, like if you spoke to the young woman from Italy, I mean, it's so backwards there. It's so male dominated. Just even being able to work a funeral is normally not allowed. And then you're seeing the women in Great Britain who are dressing in these cool suits with tails and top hats and leading processions. So I think the future of getting everyone together, to me, sounds like a great thing. There's some women owners that want to network together. So how fun would that be to start different communities online where we can all seek support and new ideas from others?
Yeah, and I know like those new owners that that's a big deal, big deal. And so they have a lot to learn, right? So
absolutely.
They
yeah,
do.
Yeah.
I know, Lisa, you expressed to me privately earlier that you think some of the young women in school or just out of school have some unrealized expectations, or maybe some expectations that aren't really what they should be about their first job or second job. What do you think? What are your questions?
Well, I don't think it's just women. I think it's just overall. I've had recent conversations with both students and educators, because I'm asking those questions to mostly to the educators to say, what are your biggest challenges with students, right? And how can we help work with them? And the answer I get on several occasions is, they say they can't find a job, but
Mm.
yet they're only looking in their own community. So they're putting blinders on and saying, you know what, I don't want to move there. I don't want to move there. So don't come and tell me that you can't find a job, because you need to widen your search. Maybe you give it a little bit, spread it out a little bit. There's one funeral home in town, and that funeral director is maybe 40. She's got a lot of years left in that position, probably not going to leave. So if you're sitting around waiting for that, not likely.
Well, and that's one thing that we talked about as well was, just because, well, like you hit on, if there's one funeral home in your community, you're going to have to go outside your community, right? And so,
Yeah.
but we also talked about the fact that where you land first, that may not be the perfect fit for you, and it may not be the perfect fit for your funeral home. And so, we've talked about different experiences, and I can say that I had a great experience coming into the funeral service profession. Yes, I
think
faced
it's-
challenges, but
I really think it's a good idea to get into several different opportunities if you can. Then that way
Yes.
you learn something from, one. Maybe you take away something like, okay, I never want to do that again. Here's how we did it here. You get a little bit of everything, and then you land somewhere where you can put all of that experience together and be very successful.
agreed. And that's what we talked about. Even if you feel like you're not at the right place at the right moment, what can you
Yes.
learn there? What can you learn there while you're looking for the right place? Because it's not a wasted opportunity. There's going to be something that you can learn there to help further your career.
yeah, and I think it's important too to get out and really serve different communities and figure out where your fit is and how you can. I mean, I'm hearing a lot about what can I do for me, but what can you do for others too? What are your strongest suits that you bring for those folks?
Right.
If you're in an area that has a demographic that really values ceremony, and then there still are pockets of that out there, right? I'm just, for example, and you love that, and you love restorative art and all, then go find some place that's going to value you too.
Correct. Yes.
So
Take it as a learning opportunity. Yeah.
absolutely.
Grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think now more than ever, it's more acceptable to not live in the town where you work. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Oh,
I think scheduling and apartments and being able to logistically figure that out. I think it's a little bit more acceptable now to drive and figure out on call. Like we're living in that time, it's even especially more in our area in the South. We're close to Atlanta, and so it's not uncommon for someone to apply that might have a little bit of a drive, and then we work with them if they're the right fit. So
We've
Good to
also
spread your
talked
wings.
about, yeah,
mhm.
we've also talked about like better onboarding and transition support. And so by onboarding, you know, we're going to try to bridge that gap where um, maybe the funeral home they're going to doesn't have an onboarding process, so they don't even know what HR is, right? So we're going to, you know, include that as well, different things where we can try to bridge that gap so that they know they have more information going in. But
Yeah,
definitely
that's
those
a cool
realistic,
idea.
yeah, and definitely those realistic expectations of, you know, like you were saying, don't go in and think you're going to start running the funeral home, you know, within the first few months, because, you know, sure, there are people that can do it, but you need to learn the way, you know, and find your voice, but don't go in shouting with that voice either.
Right. Be a good life learner, and you know it's really about learning how they want things done, and of course the owners, we do hear stories about, oh, it's always been done this way, so this is how you have to do it, just get over it.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own way of serving their communities, and whether you think it's right or wrong, your job is to first learn, your second job is to adapt, and your third is to be a life learner, seeker of knowledge. So if you're not being taught inside your funeral home experience when you first get out of school, where else could you learn? I mean, if you look at the opportunities for learning, the Funeral Service Foundation with NFDA has some incredible things you can apply for. You can get out to conventions, you can learn online classes. We have those coming up at Funeral Women Lead, ICCFA University. Cana has some great online learning. There's just so many opportunities depending on what associations your current firm belongs to. Speak up and try to find those opportunities on your own if you can. I love the idea of having an onboarding best practice document, possibly for firms that don't know how to proper onboard. I know at Bowie's we had what we call Bowie University, and those first 180 days are really critical. And those first 3 months, just how you first start learning when you come on the job, it's very important for you to not just teach by tribal knowledge, which is like show by doing, but that you have a curriculum, which of course, Erin, you know a little bit about setting up curriculum, right? Maybe we can, you know, put all of our heads together. We have 5 very intelligent women on this podcast who I know how to onboard new employees, and we could pull something together that would create a best practice for the employer and an understanding from the young people who are entering new employment of what that should look like, and say, hey, here's a tip sheet. See how that goes over, hopefully well.
Well, and you know, too, with these owners and managers, they're bringing people on because they need people, like they need them right now, and they need them to be knowledgeable, credible, etc. I think we've got to, I hope that our organization can be a beacon for helping maybe that transition a little bit, so that, yeah, we see that you have an urgent need. We get that. But how can we support you who are now hiring all these new people and trying to support them? You know, it's a domino effect. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so people hearing us today hear that we need more training in our industry, that we need in our profession, I should say. I hope they hear that need coming from the students, but I also hope that they'll open their hearts to being willing to also provide that and figure out creative ways to do that.
Absolutely. And I, you know, with all the managers and owners that I've been speaking to just since I've been with Funeral Women Lead, they are all so very open to helping and even helping us just to create something that's going to provide the long-term leadership support that women need. You know, we need women to realize that they're incredibly capable, but a lot of them have spent years kind of minimizing themselves, right, and feeling unsupported. And so helping everyone, as many people as possible, to grow into confident leaders, right, is one of the most rewarding parts of this that I think it's going to be amazing.
Okay, I just have to throw one thing out and then I'll be quiet so somebody else can talk.
You're great.
One of my biggest takeaways from Professional Women's Conference back in May was really the fact that we were in this room of just sponges. There were so many women that want to really learn. Like they are ready. They're here and they're ready. And I just hope people hear and understand that. I think that is powerful. I'm not sure that we've seen that as much in the past as we see it now.
I would agree with that. Even some of the women that I spoke to last week when I was at OGR, they were very open to the courses that we're going to have to offer and what they can learn to take back to their firms to help them be better managers as well.
That's cool. That's great when it all starts coming together, doesn't it? Well, Funeral Women Lead is in its second year. We're just getting started. We would love to hear more ideas from our listening audience. Please feel free to email us at info@funeralwomenlead.org. And if you have any questions or any thoughts about future podcast topics, please do let us know there as well. Or if you have a question for any one of us on this panel and you'd like to reach out to them, we'll get you connected with the great Ellen Wynn McBrayer and of course Elisa Carr and Melissa Posey-Luce and our own Erin Wilson. So we're just pleased to have you on the podcast today, Erin. Thank you for being with us. And just a quick reminder, registration is open for the Women's Leadership Academy. There are limited seats because to be effective, this Leadership Academy can only have a certain number of students at one time. It kicks off on Sunday, the 27th. You arrive. It's all day on the 28th, and it will be right before our summit at the Wild Dunes, Isle of Palms in Charleston, South Carolina. And then it goes online for 18 months, the rest of the year until graduation. And of course, the Leadership and Wellness Summit is coming up at the same time, at the same place, kicks off the 28th through the 30th at Wild Dunes Resort. So please go to funeralwomenlead.org. Make sure you're on our newsletter, reach out to us, and thank you, listeners, for being here today. Please, if you love our podcast, leave us positive reviews. If you don't love our podcast, send us an email and let us know what we can need to do to get better, because we're always looking for great ideas. And I know these women here are willing to learn, change, and have some more fun as we do podcasts together in 2026 and beyond. So thank you, listeners. Thank you to 4 Women and a Funeral. And thank you, Erin Wilson, for being with us today.
Yes. Thank you, Erin.
4 Women and a Funeral is a Crabshell Media podcast.